The photos were just sitting there, forgotten for decades, but when experts finally looked closer, they found something terrifying. The boy in the cap would survive Titanic only to die in a car crash 3 years later. The fancy pool would become a death trap, and that blurry photo of lifeboats, it shows how greed killed 1,500 people. They only installed 20 boats to keep the deck looking pretty. These 10 photos reveal the shocking truth about what really happened on that freezing April night. 1. The boy on the Titanic's deck. A little boy stands on the Titanic's deck playing with a spinning top. His name is Robert Douglas Spedden. He's 6 years old, wearing a coat and cap, focused only on the toy swirling beneath his feet. His father watches nearby. It's April 11, 1912. They don't know it yet, but in just 3 days the ship will be gone, sunk to the bottom of the Atlantic. The photo, taken by a Jesuit priest named Francis Brown, captured a quiet moment right before history turned tragic. Douglas was traveling first class with his wealthy parents, Frederick and Margareta Spedden. They had been on a long European holiday, even passing through Algeria, and were now heading home to New York. Their ticket was expensive, and their cabin E-34 was one of the finest on board. Everything seemed perfect. The Titanic was a floating palace, and little Douglas was just another child enjoying the ride. On the night of April 14th, the iceberg hit. It was almost midnight. Douglas had already been tucked into bed. His nurse, Elizabeth Burns, whom he called Muddy, gently woke him up. She told him they were going on a trip to see the stars. He didn't panic, he didn't cry, he just followed her. Somehow he slept through most of the chaos. By dawn, he was in Lifeboat 3, gazing at the icebergs and asking, "Oh Muddy, look at the beautiful North Pole with no Santa Claus on it." The Speddens survived. When the rescue ship, the RMS Carpathia, pulled them aboard, they were stunned to see familiar faces. Friends from back home in Tuxedo Park were already there. It was a strange kind of comfort after such horror. They had made it through what thousands hadn't. Years later, the haunting photo of Douglas on the deck became famous again when James Cameron recreated it in his 1997 film Titanic. In the movie, a child actor plays Douglas spinning his top on deck, just like the real boy did. The image came to symbolize something deeper, the innocence that existed before everything went wrong. But Douglas's story didn't end there. 3 years after the Titanic, he was playing with a football near his family's summer home in Maine. The ball bounced into the road. Douglas ran after it. An automobile hit him. He died instantly. He was just 9 years old. The boy who survived one of the most tragic disasters in history was taken by something far more ordinary. 2. The iceberg that sank the Titanic. The story of the iceberg that sank the Titanic isn't just about a chunk of ice. It's about one haunting photo taken 2 days before disaster struck that still gives people chills over 100 years later. Captain W. Wood was aboard the SS Etonian when he spotted something massive floating in the North Atlantic. He was a fan of photography, so he pulled out his camera and snapped a picture. It was April 12, 1912. Just 2 days later, in almost the exact same spot, the Titanic hit an iceberg and sank. What makes this photo so chilling is how closely it matches what survivors of the Titanic later described. 2 crew members who saw the iceberg that night, Frederick Fleet and Joseph Scarrett, sketched it from memory. Their drawings show a weird shape at the top, and when you look at Captain Wood's photo, the outline is almost the same. It's eerie how much it lines up. Captain Wood didn't just take the photo and forget about it. He sent it to his grandfather with a short note. In it, he wrote that they had crossed the ice tracks 40 hours before the Titanic during daylight, so they had seen the ice clearly. He even said the photo showed the iceberg that sank the Titanic. That kind of direct link from the man who took the photo, not just a rumor, makes the image even more powerful. There's one little mystery though. The photo is dated 1913, which has made some people question it, but the letter from Captain Wood matches everything else, and experts say it's likely the date on the photo is just a mistake. Even with that odd detail, historians still believe the photo is real and that it shows the very iceberg that tore open the Titanic's hull. Third-class passengers. The photograph shows a group of third-class passengers aboard the Titanic, smiling faintly, staring off into the unknown. They were mostly immigrants, workers, and families holding on to a dream, crossing the Atlantic to start a better life. The picture was taken just days before the ship sank. You can almost feel the hope in their eyes. But now, looking at it, you also see something else, something heavier. Most of them would never step off that ship. Back then, traveling in third class usually meant crowded dormitories and bringing your own food. But Titanic was different. The company wanted to impress immigrants enough that they'd send word back home, bringing more business. So even in steerage, passengers had real beds, heat, electric lights, and clean wash basins. Some shared cabins with strangers, others with family. It wasn't luxury, but for the time, it felt like a step up, a taste of the new life they were chasing. The third-class section was a melting pot. People from all over Europe, even as far as China, boarded with dreams of America or Canada. Some were escaping war, others poverty. Parents carried children, husbands kissed wives goodbye on the platform before boarding. Tickets cost about £7, which was everything many of them had. They gave up everything they knew to start over, thinking the hard part was behind them. But when disaster struck, they were the ones who suffered most. Only about 1 in 4 third-class passengers survived. Compare that to nearly all the women in first class, and it tells you everything. Their cabins were far from the lifeboats, deep in the lower parts of the ship. The corridors were confusing, and many couldn't even find their way out. Locked gates meant to keep the classes separated became deadly barriers when time was running out. Some were opened, others not, and in the chaos, panic took over. Now when you look at that photo again, it's impossible to see it the same way. What looked like a group of hopeful travelers is now a haunting reminder of what they wanted, of what they lost, and of how unfair fate can be. When tragedy strikes, the ones with the least. Fourth, Titanic's gymnasium. Just days before the Titanic disappeared into the depths of the Atlantic, a photo was taken, one that quietly captured something remarkable. It wasn't a dramatic shot of the iceberg or a farewell on the dock. It was a picture of the ship's gymnasium, bright, elegant, and filled with odd machines. The room was a hidden world of luxury, far removed from the tragedy that was about to unfold. The gym sat high on the boat deck, right next to the famous grand staircase. Sunlight poured through large windows, bouncing off polished brass and dark mahogany walls. It looked more like a gentleman's club than a workout room, and yet it held some of the most advanced fitness equipment of its time. At the center of it all were 2 mechanical beasts, an electric camel and an electric horse. These strange devices rocked back and forth, mimicking the feel of riding a real animal. One was said to be good for the liver. Maybe that was true. Maybe it was just another touch of first-class indulgence. Either way, passengers loved them. Nearby you'd find rowing machines with wooden handles and leather seats. There were stationary bikes hooked up to dials on the wall that showed how far you traveled, a clever trick long before digital screens came along. Dumbbells and Indian clubs were stacked neatly. A punching bag hung in the corner. Even a height measuring device stood ready, as if posture mattered on a sinking ship. Watching over all this was Thomas Macaulay. He wasn't just a gym teacher, he was the ship's official physical instructor. He taught passengers how to use the machines, ran small classes, and made sure the elite guests broke a proper sweat. He was 44, Irish, and reportedly stayed at his post as the ship went down. While others ran for lifeboats, Macaulay stayed behind, surrounded by the very machines that once symbolized luxury. Even the gym schedule followed the era's strict social rules. Women could use it in the morning, men in the afternoon, children had a narrow window just after lunch. That's how it was in 1912. Exercise wasn't just about health, it was about etiquette, image, and class. 5. Titanic's life vests. When the Titanic set sail, its passengers believed they were on the safest ship in the world. It was massive, luxurious, and full of the latest technology. But hidden beneath all that confidence was a simple object that would end up failing when it was needed most: the life vest. The ship carried over 3,000 life vests, enough for everyone on board. But these vests weren't what we'd consider safe today. They were made of hard cork blocks stuffed into a canvas shell and tied around the body with cloth ribbons. They didn't bend. They didn't fit snugly. And for many people on that ship, they didn't help. A lot of passengers had never seen a life vest like that before. Some put them on wrong. Some didn't bother to wear them until it was too late. There were language barriers, confusion, and panic. The design itself seemed simple: keep you afloat. But that's where the problem started. When someone jumped into the freezing Atlantic wearing one of these cork vests, the impact was brutal. The stiff cork didn't allow the person to sink a little before floating back up. Instead, it acted like a solid wall. Their body kept falling, but the vest yanked upward, slamming their head back. For many, it snapped their neck instantly. They didn't even get the chance to freeze to death. They died on impact. A vest made to save lives ended up killing people on the spot. It was a cruel twist. The ship was going down fast, and people had no choice but to jump from great heights. But the higher they jumped, the deadlier the vest became. And no one had warned them. Only 6 of those vests survive today. Most were lost at sea or fell apart with time. But the few that remain tell a chilling story. One was picked up by a recovery ship days after the tragedy. It still has the original ribbons tied in a bow, like someone had carefully fastened it in those final moments. Another sold for £45,000 at auction, not because it was beautiful, but because it represents one of the deadliest oversights in maritime history. 6. The swimming pool. The Titanic had everything you could imagine: grand dining rooms, elegant staircases, and even a swimming pool. That's right, a heated saltwater swimming pool hidden down on F deck. It was 30 feet long, 14 feet wide, and filled with warm water pumped straight from the Atlantic. Back then, this was a big deal. Only 2 other ships had a pool before Titanic, the Olympic and the Adriatic. But what makes this one unforgettable isn't just how rare it was. It's the chilling thought that this place of peace and leisure now lies deep under the ocean, lost forever. Only the richest passengers could use the pool. It was for first-class guests only. The area had 13 changing rooms, 2 showers, and even portholes that let in natural sunlight. But the pool itself wasn't built for beginners. It was 6 feet deep all the way through. If you didn't know how to swim well, you were out of luck. The rules around the pool were strict, especially when it came to men and women. Women were allowed in the water from 10 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Then it was the men's turn from 2 to 6 p.m. But men also got special treatment. They could swim for free early in the morning from 6 to 9 a.m. Women didn't get that chance. They had to pay no matter when they wanted to swim. To use both the pool and the Turkish baths, it cost 4 shillings or $1 in American money. If you only wanted to swim, it was 1 shilling. On the Titanic, you had to buy a ticket for the pool from the inquiry office on the sea deck near the main staircase. Colonel Archibald Gracie swam there on April 14th, calling it the best swim of his life. But that night, Titanic struck an iceberg. The comforting pool he enjoyed was soon underwater, and Gracie survived only by clinging to an overturned lifeboat. One haunting photo taken by Reverend Francis Brown showed one of the ship's only 20 lifeboats, far too few for over 2,200 passengers. Titanic could hold 64 boats, but only a third were installed to keep the deck elegant. This decision was legal under outdated 1894 maritime laws, but tragic. Many lifeboats launched half-empty out of fear the davits couldn't hold their full weight. A lifeboat drill scheduled for the morning of the sinking was cancelled by Captain Smith. Captain Smith and Chief Purser Hugh McElroy were photographed just days before the disaster, proud and calm. Smith, beloved by wealthy passengers, ignored iceberg warnings and kept speed. McElroy stayed composed, helping passengers and guarding valuables until the end. Both men perished. The first-class dining room, the largest and most luxurious on any ship, was designed to resemble a grand hotel with elegant decor and formal meal routines. It too was lost hours after serving its final dinner. Lastly, a photograph taken during Titanic's construction revealed a dark streak on the hull where the iceberg struck. Some believe this was from a coal fire that weakened the steel beforehand. Combined with brittle rivets, this may explain why the iceberg's damage, once thought to be massive, actually involved only a few small gashes. This raises a chilling question. Was Titanic doomed even before it sailed?